The logo of the store behind me once ranked right up there with Nike and McDonald's in terms of beloved brands. But this wasn't just a logo, it was a franchise empire that made Friday nights magical for 65 million customers.
This brand once had 9,000 locations worldwide. One new store opening every 17 hours. And it had franchisees who raked in serious coin on late fees and microwave popcorn.
That brand was Blockbuster Video. And today, there's only one store left, and I'm standing in front of it.
So how did Blockbuster go from an untouchable franchise empire where local owners were raking in cash on autopilot to a cautionary tale gathering dust in Oregon with franchisees left holding the bag? This is a wake-up call for anyone thinking about investing in a franchise, because what happened here can happen again. And to drive the point home, we'll compare Blockbuster's downfall to another 90s giant. A brand that took the opposite approach, leaving a roadmap for how to turn struggling franchisees into multi-unit millionaires. In this video, I'll show you exactly what that roadmap looks like. Let's get stuck into it.
So this is so awesome. It's really like going back 20 years. You walk into a store and it feels exactly like they all used to. Now, I actually worked at one of these franchise-owned stores back in Australia in a little suburb called Sindel. And even as a teenager, I could tell this thing was a money printing machine. These new releases, they used to cost the franchisee maybe like 75 bucks wholesale back in the day, but they rent out 30, 40, 50 times at $5 a pop, plus late fees. It was pretty quick to see how the economics worked. You're recouping your costs on your inventory in the first week or two, and everything after that was pure margin. And the operations couldn't get any leaner. There was minimal labor. Really, we only ever had 2 people on at 10 bucks an hour, so no skilled positions. There was no perishable inventory, no capex beyond some basic shelving, signage, and a clunky POS system that somehow still runs today. And because it was such an easy operation, many franchisees ran these as true semi-absentee models. I worked at one for almost 2 years and never met the franchise owner until one time. That's a whole other story for another day.
You wanna know what happened? Basically, this customer was so rude to this girl, made her cry. It was like being really gnarly to her. And as like an 18-year-old back then, well, what do? Well, we looked up her address. Of course, as a dumb kid, we drove there and egged and TP'd this lady's house. But, I mean, the point is, be kind to people, don't be rude, there's consequences. The Blockbuster franchise model had built-in foot traffic, high demand, insane unit economics, and national brand recognition.
So how do we go from this beautiful franchise model to being here in the last store?
Well, here's what happened in a nutshell. Let's look back at the history.
Imagine the perfect video store
Welcome to Blockbuster Video.
is popping up all over the country. There's one near you.
Blockbuster Video. Wow.
In 1985, the first store opens. And in 1987, franchising begins. In 1994, Viacom buys Blockbuster for $8.4 billion. And in 1999, they peak with 9,000 stores worldwide. Late fees alone were generating almost $1 billion in annual revenue. And in the year 2000, well, then the fork in the road appears. And this is where everything could have changed. See, in the middle of 2000, a tiny startup called Netflix walks into Blockbuster's corporate office. They pitch a partnership. We'll run your online store, you'll promote us, buy us for 50 mil, and we've got a deal. And by the way, that's about what Blockbuster generates in late fees every couple of weeks. And the Blockbuster executive team? Streaming, we're good, no thanks. They literally laughed Netflix out of the room. And that right there, that was the moment, the proverbial fork in the road. Adapt and lean into innovation, into the future, or stick with what had worked well for them in the past. The if it ain't broke, don't fix it strategy. And they chose the past, and now they're in it. Now here's the thing about that Netflix moment. Blockbuster didn't just go out in a blaze of glory, they didn't implode. They bled out, slowly. The franchisees who'd poured $500,000 into what they thought was a bulletproof model are suddenly now stuck with long-term leases, emptying stores, and no digital plan in sight. Traffic dipped, late fees vanished, customers disappeared. And Blockbuster Corporate, they didn't pivot, they doubled down. And franchisees started speaking up. In fact, in 2007, one of Blockbuster's largest US franchisees, the Southern Stores Incorporated, filed a lawsuit against corporate. Why? Because Blockbuster had launched a half-baked online service without any real plan to integrate it into local franchise locations. It diverted customers away from stores, killed foot traffic, and left franchisees out to dry. And they were getting crushed by their own franchisor. Not only did they fail to innovate on behalf of the franchisees, they then threw them under the bus in an attempt to save themselves. And when the company finally tried to build a digital platform that worked with franchisees, it was too little, too late. Netflix had already lapped them, and customers found the convenience they'd been screaming for elsewhere. Less than a decade after being on top of the world and laughing away the chance to innovate with Netflix, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. Now, as Blockbuster hit its peak of 9,000 stores around the year 2000, there was another brand, a big franchise brand of that era, that was just trailing behind with about 7,800 stores. A brand that was to be presented with its own fork in the road, and that brand is Domino's. Now, back in the early 2000s, they were ST-ruggling. Customer satisfaction was at an all-time low. People hated the pizza.
Sorry, but you do suck.
The brand was a literal joke. Sales were tanking, franchisees were bleeding, and they were this close to becoming the next Blockbuster of the generation. But here's the difference. Domino's didn't pretend everything was fine. They didn't bury their heads in the dough. Wow, that's a dad joke. They owned it. And in 2009, they ran a national campaign saying, "Our pizza sucks, we're fixing it."
There comes a time when you know you've got to make a change.
No spin, no fluff, just brutal honesty. And then they went all in on innovation. So let's take a look at that timeline. In 2010, they launched online ordering and cutting-edge real-time pizza tracking. In 2015, they launched their Anywhere platform. Order from your car, your TV, even your smart fridge. In 2017, they even tested drone and robot delivery. And the result of their strategy shift in 2010? Get this, from 2010 to 2017, their stock appreciated more than 2,000% in that time frame. This outperformed the tech giants like Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and even Google. They too considered themselves a tech company that just happened to sell pizza through their franchisees.
All right, so we're out here in Mesa, Arizona today at a brand new surf park because honestly, one of the perks of owning a business, franchise or otherwise, is you get to call when and where you work. So today I'm actually mixing a little bit of work and play. But I actually think this location is perfect to stress test the Domino's delivery system. It's their claim to fame, their biggest pride and joy in terms of the technology. With their new pinpoint delivery system, you're supposed to be able to get a pizza delivered anywhere. And we are literally smack bang in the middle of the desert right now in a brand new zip code. So we're gonna see if that's true. We wanna drop a pin. So what they have is Domino's pinpoint delivery, right? And you log in, you put your pin on exactly where you are, then the pizza comes. What's cool is they're using AI behind the scenes to optimize the routes, help drivers find people even when there's not an address available. Okay, so it looks like the pizza's been accepted. It says it's gonna be here in 25 minutes. I'm still a little skeptical. I'm gonna go get a few waves and hopefully when we get back, there's a pizza waiting for us. Let's go see. Oh, yeah, he's over here. Yes. That is ridiculous. We are in the middle of a surf park in the desert and I got it. Give me $10. Let's go eat it.
See, that's what happens when a franchise owns its flaws, fixes the product, and actually supports its operators. While Blockbuster collapsed from 9,000 stores to just one, Domino's exploded from 7,000 to over 24,000 locations worldwide. They rebuilt the product. They leaned all the way into innovation and tech. They rebuilt the franchise model so the franchisees could actually win. The lessons. If you're evaluating a franchise in 2025 and beyond, there are two questions you have to ask. Because this isn't the 90s anymore. You're not just competing with other franchises. You're up against tech-enabled independents, AI-powered local operators, and a market that's changing faster than most franchisors can keep up with. So make sure you ask, question one, what's the actual tech stack behind the brand? Not the shiny front end, not the buzzwords in the brochure. What does the real back end look like? the CRM, what sort of marketing tech, sales automation, operations, dashboards, call centers, AI integration. Now compare all of that to what the average independent in this space can access today. Because tech that used to cost $50,000, now a solo operator can get their hands on for $99 a month with AI. So if your franchisor is not obsessed with leading on tech, those royalty and marketing fees will start to feel less like an investment and more like a tax. Question 2, is there a culture of innovation, a desire to lead an industry? This is bigger than just the software. It's about mindset. Are they running R&D on new tech? Are they testing AI, automation, new platforms? Are they out in front or constantly catching up? Because here's the truth. Franchise systems used to win because they had better tools. Now, the tools are democratized. Anyone can launch Facebook ads or build a Zapier workflow or automate sales, which means that the average mom and pop competitor just got a whole lot more dangerous. And unless your franchisor is out there breaking things, testing tech, and backing owners like their life depends on it, you're not buying an edge. You might be buying a business that's already getting lapped by a 19-year-old with a ChatGPT and Wi-Fi. So, Blockbuster bet on the past, Domino's bet on progress, and only one's still here. So if your franchisor isn't running into the future at full speed, maybe it's time you start looking at a brand that is. Because in the next video, I'm breaking down a modern franchise that's doing exactly that. Lean, tech forward, and built for scale. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you there.